ReSkilling America. My colleague in this is Betsy Myers, who was the Chief Operating Officer of the Obama campaign, and before that was the Executive Director at the Kennedy School at Harvard. Betsy and I believe that the unspoken conversation right now is going to be the delta between the skills that people have and the skills that they're going to need for continued employment. And hear the phrase we say, continued employment. That includes the people that are unemployed right now. That includes the people who are about to be unemployed. That includes people who are re-entering the job market, either voluntarily or involuntarily. Folks who are coming out of military. Folks who are coming out of prisons. Folks who are retired and now are finding that their retirement spreadsheet doesn't work. There is a huge requirement for us to take a look at reskilling. Now, the President so far has talked, and I think I'm very proud of what he's talked about, the role of community colleges to be part of this, and I think that will be an element of it. But we don't have enough community college seats to even begin to get at what the size of the reskilling challenge is going to be. We estimated somewhere around 30 million people will need to be reskilled in the United States. And bluntly, they're not going to go back to school in a full-time sense. And I would argue, and we are going to advocate, that a large measure of this be done using the technologies, methodologies, and modes that live in this world. How do we use distance learning? I'll give you a great example. How do we take that person who's been working at a GM plant, doing electronic harness work, putting radios into dashboards, who has lost their job and bluntly is not going to get another job doing that, has been doing it for 18 years, and by the way, there's probably no job for them in Michigan, but is willing to move to Phoenix, Arizona. How do we prepare them to be an electrician? Okay, now there's a lot of hurdles. The electricians union is going to have to take a deep breath. Okay, but the reality is that person doesn't need to go back to school for 2 years. They probably know 90% of it. How do we map what they know? Right now in the United States every week there are somewhere around 600,000 people being laid off, and a lot of them are getting rehired quickly in that sense. But do you realize that when somebody gets laid off they don't get a skills transcript on the way out? And our HR rules right now tell me at the Masie Center the most I can say is they worked for me from 1991 until recently, and this is what I paid them, and I have no further comment on that. How are we going to get people reskilled if we don't even have some standards around how to talk about what their skill sets are? And how do we get them reskilling while they're still working in a descending population and a world? It's going to be huge. I do not expect it's going to come with a big federal investment dollar. I will tell you that families are going to have to reach in and spend some disposable dollars, much as when I was in India, every one of the drivers that I met, every one of the drivers that essentially was a working class driver were working so that one of their children could go into a certificate or a degree program so that they could get a job to take care of them when it was time for them to retire. Some of this is not going to come from public funding, but we're going to have to figure out some interesting and different models. We're going to have to engage our faith-based communities in this. We're going to have to engage our senior citizens. I can tell you right here, Jim knows that I eat at Uncommon Grounds often. I've got about 20 friends there who are retired, and if I said to them, would you be willing to be an online mentor to somebody who's reskilling in an area that you had an expertise, most of them would do it, and most of them wouldn't ask for some compensation in that process. But how are we going to become a society that's focused on skills, that understands the role that skills play? And I'm going to go all the way back to the learning changes. If we're going to continue to be the kind of society that we're going to be, with all of the economic uncertainty that's coming, we've got a huge opportunity to harness all this cool technology, all the core infrastructure that we have, all of the wonderful base institutions that you reflect, to think about something very provocative. We've used the phrase lifelong learning. But I'm not sure we've really understood what it would look like if America was a society of lifelong learning. And it is where distance learning comes. It's the heart of what we can do. Yes, it's wonderful that we can get 50 or 60 students that want to learn something in that mode, but I want you to start to think about scale. Because for reskilling, even for what does it mean when somebody leaves a 4-year liberal arts degree program, what other things do they need to get employed? I've been arguing with some of my colleagues at Skidmore that they should all become certified project managers. Because wouldn't it be great to have somebody who had a BA in French and could manage projects? You probably would be willing to hire them faster than if they just had a BA in French and the like. But even more importantly, because once again, to me it's not about the technology, it's about the methodology, and it's about the reason. All along, people who have been involved in distance, distributed, alternative, blending, whatever you want to call what we do. And by the way, I know most of you, your spouses and parents have no idea what you do for a living, so, I apologize, But we've had a single common goal. When I helped coin that term e-learning at an early meeting that we had, I remember we put the word E up and somebody said, oh yeah, it's electronic. And I said, no, let's take 10 minutes and define what E stood for. And I wish I still had the sheets from that meeting, because it was everywhere learning. It was engaged learning. It was evolving learning. It was enthusiastic learning. And then people said, do we have to keep it on E? I said, no, and then it was affordable learning. We haven't fully gotten to affordable in that sense. But our goal here is a simple one. Whether you like it or not, we are facing the most uncertain times that this country has ever faced. I personally believe that the end of us being at the top of the top is there, and that we ought to look at Britain and see what it did when it slid a little bit and how it adapted. But whatever your political framing, it is a time of uncertainty. It is a time of enormously interesting, evolving technology. To your point, it's a time of disparity as well, of folks who are having the best of times, retirees who have great, guaranteed pensions, and their neighbors who have nothing left in their 401ks and have that disparity. I believe that our opportunity in our moment is here. How do we use what we do as a force for political, for societal, and for, at the end of the day, developmental change? And the only way we're going to do it is if we continue to experiment. If we're willing to fail, occasionally we're going to have to close a program and start something new. We're going to have to change something. We're going to have to evolve. We're going to have the courage to do it. We're going to get competitors that we never thought of before. Maybe Charmin will start offering a free, BA program or something somewhere. But out of that comes a simple opportunity. We have the technology, the methodology, and the academic background to fundamentally evolve the world of learning. And it is an honor to be with people who have been both pioneers and new arrivers to that. And thank you so much for honoring me, but more importantly, thank you for what you do and for doing it here in Saratoga Springs. Take care.